Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid Atlantic Championship Wrestling Review Series. This is the Halloween 1981 edition, 10/31/81. And again, we kind of go into pretty cool stuff here. Exciting because I'm enjoying the foray, going through about 200 of these in total, something like that. Maybe we'll find a little bit more. But anyway, we open with Charlie Fulton and Buddy Landell. Buddy Landell before the bleached blonde hair. Landell, relatively new to the wrestling business at this point in 1981, shows a lot of promise, but not necessarily what he's going to do with himself in the coming months and weeks. Anyway, lots of, back and forth there. Fulton is an enhancement talent who always brings good matches out of people. Obviously, Landell, the guy who is kind of doing more of the brawling type basic stuff there, and Fulton takes him back to the buckle. Some ride time by Landell. Landell not exactly wanting to take backward steps. Both guys jockeying for position as it relates to top wrist locks and hammer locks and that. Landell obviously doing a bit more heel related stuff, getting body slammed and backbreakered around by Fulton. Worth going out of your way if you are a up and coming television independent wrestler who's just learning how to work in front of a studio audience or small audience independent show type stuff. Beautiful dropkick right to the face by Landell as well. Even though he's a heel, still having some wrestling acumen is useful, and I think that's something that gets lost. Sometimes being a heel is all about, knowing the timing of how to put your heel tactics in when needed, cheating when you're frustrated, not cheating right off. Anyway, some grind down by Fulton, and again, second dropkick by Landell. Landell really in a good position here, and managing to do everything he possibly can during the early stages of the match. A big back body drop. Back body drop's not something we see a whole ton of here, and eventually a gut wrench suplex by Landell. Landell getting the victory off the gut wrench, and we move into a Jake Roberts promo. Roberts saying he wants his team and his ability to get his hands on guys like Ole Anderson and Roddy Piper. Roberts wearing a cowboy hat just doesn't make sense to me. Talks about the cheating of previous people. Also, Wahoo McDaniel again talking about not getting the level of competition he wants here in Mid-Atlantic since his return. Wahoo, obviously a guy that's been around since the 60s, I believe, but kind of bringing him back in as a major force. Then we go to a tag team match here. This is Jake Roberts in tag team action. His partner is Paul Jones versus Super D and Ole Anderson. Super D and Ole Anderson, not a team I know a bunch about. Paul Jones, very bland guy from a wrestling standpoint, even more bland as a manager. But the Super D, Super Destroyer, is the individual there. Match is joined in progress. Obviously, Super D is revealed to be someone he's not portraying himself to be. Ole Anderson at the time for the Georgia and the Carolina area, a big deal. Obviously, his tag team partner with Gene, and then the history with Lars Anderson. The Anderson name goes back a long, long time. Super Destroyer taking several shots. Ole Anderson, one thing that he does is has such a basic offense, but everything looks like it matters. From an elbow drop to a shot to the buckle, you don't have any doubt that Ole Anderson means business when he's in there. Both guys going roundabout, and then you see Super Destroyer hook up a bear hug. Anderson and Destroyer stay strongly on Roberts. Roberts takes the majority of the punishment during this particular contest, and some ride time by Super Destroyer actually cinching up on a hammerlock in the middle of the ring. Not exactly, your five-star classic, but at the same time, Roberts, who manages to come up brawling and manages to catch his opponent. All four guys come into the ring. Paul Jones and Ole Anderson are there. Short knee, the knee lift that Jake Roberts is using, almost like a Mr. Wrestling 2 was in Mid-South at the time, managing there. And they're bouncing Ole Anderson around like a ping pong ball, and Anderson obviously getting laid out and laid up. Anyway, Super Destroyer comes back in. Super Destroyer manages a lot of struggle there and some body slams by Paul Jones. Super Destroyer goes into the tights and loads up the mask, does the headbutt to Jones with the loaded mask, 1, 2, 3, and there you go. Obviously, there is some sort of switch, and that winds up being Gene Anderson, as is later learned. Obviously, Paul Jones and Jake Roberts and everyone is upset by this. The Andersons coming back saying that no one would be ready to face the Andersons, Ole and Gene, as the defending tag team champions, and so yes, they hid the identity. Ole Anderson, mean and grovelly, basically saying that no team is ready to face them. Ole is a phenomenal promo. A lot learned by Arn as it relates to him. A lot learned by even a C.W. Anderson in later days as far as that's concerned. Anyway, we go to a Jimmy Valiant match. Jimmy Valiant against Rick Harris. Basic match here. Valiant does some sidestepping after a couple of hip tosses, arm drags and the like. Harris, of course, becomes Black Bart. We've already talked about that in previous generations of things, but to think that he's main eventing in World Class within a couple of years. By the way, if you haven't checked out the Mid-Class series, there's over 320 of those available for your listening pleasure. A couple hundred Mid-South, a couple hundred Super Treasure Wrestling. We're trying to have the most comprehensive old school wrestling review series for your listening pleasure. Anyway, an elbow drop of all things leading to a victory for good old Mr. Jimmy Valiant. And so the Ninja is here. He's facing off against Mike Davis. Ninja with John Holiday as his manager, and Holiday eventually post-match basically implying that he resents him being called Kabuki. Ninja wearing a bit of a mask, punch kick, very basic stuff, martial arts, nerve holds and the like, and a very short match here. Davis, new to the industry and kind of getting worn down. We see that Ricky Steamboat has what I believe to be the Mid-Atlantic Television Championship at this point. Steamboat says he's ready for challenges, also says that guys in masks are for Halloween, and they're kind of teasing the Halloween thing. Leroy Brown comes out and says that the actions of guys like Piper and everything else need to be handled. So Leroy Brown kind of right along with the Ricky Steamboat. All the baby faces are aligned. Actually, baby faces are friends, as our heels are friends too. Anyway, so Outlaw Ron Bass is here. He is your television champion, so that must be another championship anyway that Steamboat's holding. But anyhow, Bass is here, and Bass is continuing his foray into his championship run. His opponent on this particular day is Chris Markoff against Ron Bass. Markoff, one half of the Russians and the tag team champions for the time period. Arm bars and hair pulls. Obviously, the Russians are guys who really don't care about rules. A lot of punch kick, trying to cheat, low blows, using the ropes for leverage, any sort of advantage they can get, body slams, and Bass coming up, a bit more of a brawler. Bass had been brought in during this run in early September, kind of trying to get him over as a babyface here. Doesn't necessarily work, although the rough top rumble kind of brawling run there, he does manage to hit an elbow to the side of the head. Also, Lord Al Hayes gets involved in the match, and that leads to a disqualification and no victory for Markoff to close that particular matchup. Then we kind of go into the direction of a Sergeant Slaughter match. Sergeant Slaughter, of course, your U.S. champion here. Slaughter facing off in this final match of the day against Arn Kernoodle. Kernoodle and Slaughter eventually tag up a few years later, but here, certainly, they are adversaries. U.S. champion Sergeant Slaughter taking a good bit of punishment. Slaughter is doing the military gimmick and hangs around here for a couple of, well, at least 6 months to a year. Anyway, big backdrop by Slaughter. Slaughter trying to get a quick victory, doesn't get what he wants on the pinfall attempt here, but Slaughter continues to go in the direction of trying to eliminate Kernoodle early. Puts on the Cobra Clutch and locks him up with the hold pretty quickly. Kernoodle doesn't want to go out completely at first, but Kernoodle eventually fights his way out and then gets clothesline for his trouble. Roddy Piper says that he's not causing the level of trouble that everyone thinks he is. Wants another match with Jay Youngblood. Finds it embarrassing. Again, Slaughter saying that everybody wants to be a member of Sergeant Slaughter's army, and we see Private Jim Nelson, who has been doing enhancement work for the last few weeks. Nelson comes out in military fatigues, and now Nelson and Slaughter are aligned. As we close the day, also a upcoming challenge as the Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Champion, Ivan Koloff says that he will take the car of Jimmy Valiant in an upcoming series of matches. We'll be back with more right after this.